that help you really talk about and share what the Combined Fund Drive does or what we've been doing if you've been here for a while, so our updated statistics and numbers. We'll then spend some time talking about our volunteers and what they do in the different levels and how it might work for your agency. We'll talk about promoting the campaign this year with this year's theme. We'll then have a roundtable discussion talking about what's your story and the importance of storytelling within your agency. We'll talk about some high-level fundraising necessary practices because we know not every agency participates in fundraisers. Hopefully, we'll be joined by a charity speaker later to just give you an example of a charity that you could partner with. And then we'll talk about next steps. So again, the CFD basics, our mission is really just to empower Washington public employees and retirees to strengthen their commitments through the funding and support of charities. We know as public workers, we're already public servants, but oftentimes people are going above and beyond, and we really want to recognize and celebrate that. And that's one of the benefits of the Combined Fund Drive. A little bit of history. If you've heard this speech, just at least, don't mute me because I promise, I might say something new. But if you have heard this before, I know. But it's helpful to know where we've come from. So in 1984, we were created through the executive order of Governor John Spellman, and at the time, Thurston County Auditor Sam Reed. Basically out of a necessity of we were getting a lot of different charities coming to a lot of different agencies and coming knocking on their door asking for some time. They were appeasing them, but then it didn't feel equitable. It kind of felt disruptive at times. And so they were trying to find a solution. And so they modeled us over at the time what they were doing in the 80s with the United Ways. But we kind of made some adjustments as far as eligibility and ways that people can donate. In 2000, we got an executive ethics board that basically said, hey, the CFD is a part of state business, and it allows your agency to decide how much time, resources are available for the campaign on a given year. And so that gives us basically the permission to exist, and especially during work hours and being paid by state funds. In 2003, we become a state law. In 2004, we create an online giving platform. That is the platform we are still using today. It is still trusty. It's just a little old and rickety, but it's safe. It's still reliable, and we are making steps to mitigate, and we've made some success in the last year to really move the needle there, and I'm excited to share a little bit more later about that. And then in 2010, we move over from the Department of Personnel. So if you have been here for a while, you saw that transition. Department of Personnel doesn't exist anymore. It's now a few different agencies that absorbed a lot of the programs. And so we do appreciate you all being here. So again, talking about that advisory board opinion, just really hitting it home. CFD volunteers can conduct CFD activities using state resources like employee time, equipment, and supplies. The caveat is each agency really gets to decide the amount of state resources devoted to the CFD, and it's at your discretion of your agency. So what can be challenging about this, especially if you've been here for a little bit, or if you look at your neighbor at the agency next to you and they're doing something completely different, is your agency really gets to decide how much time and energy and resources are dedicated to the Combined Fund Drive. The four of us are willing and able to meet with your leadership team to really reiterate this and to make sure that they understand their legal abilities to kind of dedicate. We've seen some agencies write in, volunteering for the Combined Fund Drive or organizing the volunteer activities for the Combined Fund Drive into a job description. We've seen that every once in a while. We've seen agencies write a specific fund. So they get a PI code and they get a small budget to put on activities to promote CFD giving overall. And those are all legal ways that your agency can participate, but not everyone does. And so we also know that there's a lot of turnover at the state, especially when it comes to if we get a new governor and then all of a sudden we have a bunch of new department state heads. It's going to be really important for us to tell that management the story of how we got here, what they can and can't do. And just because the last administration didn't prioritize the CFD at this agency doesn't mean that we can't moving forward, something along those lines. So again, happy to always walk you through that. Contact a director or an exec management and talk through the process because we know it can be a little challenging to navigate, especially if you're looking at your neighbor, seeing them do something really, really cool that you're just unable to do because of the lack of resources. So we can always assist you with that. Some fast facts and figures. Right now, as of today, we've raised over $168 million since 1984 for charities. I think that's a pretty impressive number. We are state workers. We are not in it for the paychecks, and we are still making really monumental movement and providing a lot of resources for our local, state, and national nonprofits. In 2020, three, we collected over $4.2 million for our charities, which is a small dip from our heydays when we were a little over $5 million. But given the current economic time that we're in with really high cost of living and semi-stagnant wages, I think that's a really impressive number and shows that there's still dedication. To our communities and people are still making time and effort and dedicated resources to our partner charities. And to further that, we're still one of the top 5 giving programs in the nation. We've seen downward turns nationwide. And so we're kind of on trend and following a lot of what we're seeing around the nation right now. Consistently, we're in the top 3 with California and Texas, which I think is a really impressive number, given that we are not the 3rd most populous state, but we are consistently either 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, depending on the year, for nationwide giving. And I think that's something to be really proud of. And currently, we have over 3,500 member charities. That number is constantly ebbing and flowing. Individuals can join the combined fund drive or leave the combined fund drive at their will, providing they meet the minimum qualifications. So currently, there are 3 ways to give. Monetarily, which is the one that most people are the most familiar with. We've been doing that since the inception. Volunteerism, we started tracking this a little better in about 2016, basically recognizing that not everyone can give monetarily, and some people give monetarily and with their donated hours. And so we track volunteer hours with our member charities per agency and then award some statistical awards for that because we want to recognize that there are multiple ways to give. Most recently, we added a goods drive component, which we'll go into a little bit later, but just again, making sure that we quantify when people are doing those food and good drives. Monetarily, there are 4 ways to give. Cash becoming less and less prevalent, but still an option. If you collect cash, it's really important that you just follow all cash handling procedures. So defer to your fiscal office because ultimately we really don't want you sending cash in the mail to us. We don't want you inter-officing mail cash to us. It's really hard to track. So the safest way to do cash is following all your cash handling procedures, which usually is taking the cash, counting it with 2 people constantly, getting it to your fiscal office. They deposit it and then journal voucher or JV over an electronic deposit to us in that way. We still accept checks. Again, not as common, but still there. You just need to make sure that you write the check out to the combined fund drive. And then the memo line can be which charity you want that money to go to. But we need to be able to cash the check, put it into our bank account so then we can send out the big checks to all the charities. Credit cards, we've seen an increase in that credit card usage. And so we are able to create links, credit card links basically per event for your agency. So if you're running an event, we can create a credit card link to accept that payment through a secure method. And then the one that started it all, payroll contribution, it still makes about 95% of the donations. And there are three ways in the payroll contributions to give. One of the things that's really important to note if you're focusing on participation for your agency, payroll contribution is currently the only way that we can track participation. And I know you might be like, but Robert, why? And I'll explain. The quickest way is our donor management system. Again, as Jolynn pointed out, trusty but rusty. Yes, absolutely. It's secure. The challenge is we're not able to attach different types of payments to your donor profile because the way that the system was built 20 years ago, it was built for payroll contribution. And so until we update our system, which we're starting to work on, payroll contribution is the only way that we can really count towards agency participation. When we get those credit cards, it counts towards your agency as far as dollars raised, but we can't delineate, oh, there were 72 people that donated, and it was these 72 people who are also donating through payroll, so they cancel each other out, or this is the overlap, like one of those middle school like Venn diagrams where we have to figure out who participated in which category. Our system just can't do that right now. And so right now it's payroll contribution, the three ways, monthly contributions. So again, that is the most common, kind of set it and forget it. A lot of individuals will set up a contribution and they will donate their entire time working for state service. I know that I have a few that started a month after I started at the state and have been there ever since. And every once in a while I add and update. But that is the most common. If you are PERS eligible when you retire, you can continue to donate through your monthly contributions. Other ways, one-time deductions. So again, that very specific event, we're going to do a chili cook-off, we're going to do a talent show, etc. I want to donate once for admission into that event. Great. And then limited time, some individuals say, you know what? It's the giving season, October through December. I really only want to just give for those 3 months. And we say, great, we'll take your money until you tell us to stop. And they put an end date and then we stop pulling those donations then. The volunteer tracker. The easiest way to track your volunteer hours right now is to find it through the CFD search engine. You can look up their organization by name, a keyword, their CFD charity number, or a few other variables. There are always some like, but Robert, I'm having a hard time finding it. Our search engine, again, is from our 20-year-old system, a little clunky. So sometimes if the organization has the at the beginning of it, you need to include the, or they spell their name a certain way. You need to make sure that you're close to it. It doesn't quite pick up on keywords the way that we'd love it to. It's on our wish list of things to improve. But you just go ahead and search that charity and then you log those volunteer hours by hitting that green button. It'll take you to a page where you basically self report your hours that you donated. It's really important. This is an honor system thing. It's on what you think is appropriate. Most people would say, hey, if I'm getting paid to do this, even though I'm volunteering at an organization, I'm being paid by the state to do this, like CFD volunteering, right? It is volunteer work, but it's also like you're getting paid by the state. Some people wouldn't count that. Some people have. I'm not gonna police individuals. Again, the same with like we've had some people donate and say like, well, I'm a caretaker for someone on the weekends and that's 24 hours, even though, there might be hours that I'm sleeping, I'm still responsible for them. Use your best judgment, try to give sound advice. We're really trying to just track when people are actually volunteering for an organization. And then we report out on that and give a monetary value. So there's some organizations that kind of quantify how much an hour of volunteer time is. And we're able to then say, hey, as a whole, for the state, we saved nonprofits over $300,000. And it's really exciting. We do some awards for participation and volunteerism as well. Our newest way to track is our goods drive. This is a QR code. You don't have to have it memorized. It's also on our main website, which we can show you later when we just give you a brief tour of the website. But there's a place for ways to give, and you can get to this. Very similar to the volunteer reporting. It's a self-report fillable form where you're saying how many goods you donated, whether that be food or clothing items. And again, it's just another way to tell our story, to be able to really honor what you all do, because we know some agencies are motivated by different things, right? A money drive is not going to motivate people, but the idea of getting coats for individuals who might not otherwise have access to coats is really important and will motivate your base of people. And so we're here to really just hype you all up the best that we can and talk highly of the activities that you all are doing. A reminder of why the CFD is still relevant and important. I think that's a really a crucial conversation. It's 2024. Most people have one of these little computers in their hands and can Google their favorite charity and make a donation like that if they wanted to. And so it's important to give them the benefits of why it is still relevant and still important for individuals to utilize things like the combined fund drive. For the charities, it's free to join after they have they're all 501c3s for the most part, and most of them, if they're doing business in the state of Washington, they're already registered as a charity in the state, and that's all the requirements we have. It can reduce their administrative cost because they don't have to spend resources trying to reach out to state workers because we do that. We are the avenue for them. They also can pull a report that gives them pledges. So if people have set those monthly deductions, they can pull a report that says, hey, we know it's a snapshot in time and we know people can change their minds, but if everyone continues to donate what they say they're going to donate, this is how much money we can pull in for 2024. And that, again, allows them to budget a little bit and think about what projects they might be able to invest in, what services they might be able to provide with that potential income. It is the only way that they have access to state workers. They shouldn't be going from agency to agency and coming through. That we should be kind of the gates that they get through to talk to state workers. And truly, we strive for a low administrative cost. We really pride ourselves in trying to hit that somewhere between 8 and 12% mark, depending on the quarter, because we know that we want to get as much money as we possibly can into the hands of the charities that are doing the work. And so we're a lean organization. We're not super bloated. We want to be a good steward for the charities and get them more access to more money, because we know that they are providing critical services for the communities that we aren't able to respond to as state entities. And so we heavily rely on these nonprofits to really fill the gaps that our communities are struggling with. For donors, oh, Jolynn.
Um, yeah, hi, sorry. I just wanted to add to what you were saying, Robert. With the way the CFD disperses funds, as somebody who sat on the charity end for many years, it actually reduces the charity's admin overhead as well, because it's easier to process those gifts. It goes a lot faster. And so as a result, more of the gift that's given through the CFD goes directly to service. And that's one of those soft costs that you don't always see, but that I think is important to call out.
Thank you, Jolynn. Yeah, and that is one of those things where it's way easier to process one check for $150,000 for the Thurston County Food Bank rather than the 1,400 individuals that donated to them through the combined fund drive. And so you're absolutely right. For the donors, again, we have a computer in our hand, most of us. But why? Why the CFD still? And The idea that you can manage multiple donations through one portal should alleviate some of those things as far as like, oh, can I remember my username and password for all these different organizations? Or when my credit card expires, now I need to log into the 7 organizations that I'm donating to and update them each one by one. And so the idea of it being an easy kind of one-stop shop is there. We know that from a feature standpoint, we could still use a little bit of shining up. But the general feature of just being able to donate to multiple charities simultaneously is there, and a service that most independent nonprofits can't offer because they're self-serving for themselves, which totally makes sense. It's secure. Unfortunately, we've seen individuals prey on disasters. So when we've seen things like the Eastern Washington wildfires or the Lahaina fires or the conflict in the Middle East or anything else really, we sometimes see individuals kind of striking up. Oh, send this money to this PayPal, send this money to this Venmo, and unfortunately, I know that some of those people are truly on the ground and getting money to where it needs to go, but there's also cases and documented cases of individuals stealing money from individuals and not using the money for intended purposes. And so we're still a very secure organization because we vet our charities to ensure that they are registered 501(c)(3s and that they are registered in the charities division with the Washington State, which means that there's some level of oversight to ensure that they're doing what we think that they should be, what they're reporting that they're doing with the money. The choice is yours. So we, you know, support a lot of different charities with a lot of different missions. There are some that aren't very controversial at all for individuals, like you say a food bank, and most people go, yeah, yeah. And then there are some more difficult discussions to be had, right? We have Catholic Community Services and Planned Parenthood, and the reality is we are just here to help facilitate your donor dollars. And so we're never going to redistribute your money in a different way. We're going to take your money and donate it to the organization that you've indicated is responsible. And if for some odd reason we can't, like that charity closes or something along those natures, we have policies that we follow to reach out to you and redistribute or refund to ensure that we can do the best case scenario for donor intent when it comes to who you want your money going to. We allow for anonymity. Sorry, I'm long-winded. I don't know who's trying to get me to move along so quickly. We allow for anonymity, and
Not me,
so
not me. Sorry. It just slipped my fingers
and
quickly.
so we know that when you donate to nonprofits or political campaigns, you donate like $1 and then you're on a list for life and you get mailers forever. And that can be really overwhelming for people because some individuals just want to donate and they don't really want you to spend, they don't want the nonprofit to spend the resources to tell them what they're doing. They believe in the profit, they believe in the mission, they don't need that. And so you're able to donate anonymously. We obviously know who you are because we need to take the money out of your payroll. But then when we compile, as Jolynn was kind of mentioning, when we compile all the money and send the one big check or the one big electronic deposit, in the breakdown, it'll just say, instead of saying Robert Lane, $20, it'll say anonymous, $20. And so they know someone donated $20, but they're unable to kind of thank you, reach out to you, offer you whatever. And so it is still a nice way for some individuals and a selling point. And then tax deductible is on there. We know that a lot of people, because of the tax code changes in 2019, are doing the standard deduction. But if you hit that threshold, we provide a breakdown of your donations at the end of the year for all of the places that you donated through the CFD, so you don't again have to track down those 7, 10, 14, however many donations you might be doing for the different charities. So disbursement, basically we disperse 4 times a year, and that can be a little bit confusing and for some individuals because if they donate their money yesterday, right? June 10th was a pay date for a lot of people. They might think, well, yeah, that charity should have a record of me donating already. And the reality is we collect the money and we reconcile per quarter. And so We do that because there are things that pop up that people do not expect. Sometimes someone goes on FMLA and we're unable to collect that money, and so we expected money, but then we didn't get it. Or sometimes someone writes an extra zero when they're adding their pledge and they donated $1,000 instead of $100, and we have to issue a refund to correct that. We need that grace to make sure that we actually collect the right amount of money, that all the money matches, because our application, the CFD donor application, kind of acts like QuickBooks, if you've ever done your taxes that way, where you have your bank account that actually has the money, and then QuickBooks is supposed to tell you how much money you have. Very similar concept. The CFD application tells us how much money we should have from each agency, each person, and where the money's going. And then our fiscal team at Secretary of State's office says, yes, that's the same amount of money. Or no, somehow we ended up with $400 more than what you're saying, which usually means someone did a fundraiser, forgot to tell us, but sent us the money anyways. And then we have to figure out where's that money going so we can get it to the right charity. So that's a lot of Renee's job. She spends a lot of time tracking down what y'all are doing, where the money went, where it should be going. But again, we disperse that money on a quarterly basis, and it's in one big check or electronic deposit. And so we base our disbursements on a calendar quarter system. So the January through March donations go out in April, the April through June donations go out in July, etc. And then some people might say, hey, Robert, why do you charge an admin fee? You're a state entity. Shouldn't you just be funded? Ha ha ha. As you all might know, there are a lot of government mandated things that happen without funding. And we were one of those things. They said the CFD will exist and we're not giving you any money to run it, because that's what the legislature does sometimes. Sorry if there's any legislatures in here, but it's true. So that means that we have to self-fund. And when we can't fund all the expenses, we charge an admin fee. And so it's a very basic equation, basically how much money we receive. So people can donate directly to the CFD as one of their member charities, so they can donate to help offset the admin costs. Some agencies do fundraisers, and instead of benefiting one charity over another, they'll benefit the combined fund drive, which actually helps all charities because the more money we raise for the combined fund drive, the less admin we have to charge. The less admin we have to charge, the more money all the charities that were receiving money get. We can do corporate donations, so we break a couple, not rules, but usually guidelines for a lot of agencies. They can't accept money from a random entity, but we're able to enter into legal agreements, and that's why we have the Washington State Employee Credit Union, who provides us with Starbucks gift cards, or Twin Star Credit Union, who covers the cost of the leadership breakfast, or any of those other kind of agencies that have helped us in the past. And then there is a little bit of interest that's earned on that money during those open quarters. So between January and March, when we're collecting everyone's $5 and $10, we do accrue some interest on that money that's sitting there for the 2 months. And so we use that interest to try to pay our bills. People might ask, what are our expenses? Just like most organizations, our biggest expense is salaries. And so the 4 positions, the 4 people that you met at the beginning, we're paid out of the CFD. We're not covered under the general fund. It's a discussion, but it requires the legislature to act on behalf of that. So currently, we're still covered under the administrative cost. We do agency refunds, and so we often will ask you, if you can, to try to build that cost into whatever you're doing. So right, if you're doing a t-shirt sale and you want to charge $15, the first $10 goes to cover the t-shirt, the $5 actually goes to the charity. For a while, people had this idea of like, oh, we sold t-shirts for $15, so we're just going to give $15 to the charity, and then we're just going to ask the CFD to refund us. And you can do that, but what you end up doing is just jacking up our administrative cost. And then the charities are like, why is there, a 20% administrative cost? So we try to build in those costs to pay ourselves back when we're doing programs like goods that we're kind of upselling or anything like that. Event contracts. So again, when we host things like the leadership breakfast, when we hosted things like the masquerade ball, the statewide awards, any of our trainings, we have to open up we have to open up event contracts. DES doesn't like give us for free in-kind things. We sign the same contracts that every other agency does. And so we have to pay those. And then IT equipment, standard things like keeping our servers up and running, keeping laptops in the 4 of ours possessions. And basically, we do a simple math equation, and almost always we have more expenses than what we raise for the CFD specifically. And so there's a really intense math calculation that figures out, hey, if we keep back blank amount of percent, we will cover all our bills. And so that is a variable every quarter. Sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 12, but on average, it kind of falls into that 4% range the last several years. And so we're trying to be really cognizant of keeping that in there and finding other ways to keep our expenditures lower. And so, recently our office has picked up some of our IT kind of contracts. So they're paying now for like our Adobe license for Layla so she can continue to make graphics, but the CFD doesn't have to cover it. The general fund can cover it through legal ways. And so that's what we've been up to. Any questions about the administrative cost? I know that one can kind of be a little cumbersome. So you might be wondering, okay, Robert, I'm the new campaign leader. Now what? Here's kind of the timeline of the remainder of the calendar year. You're in campaign leader training. We're going to ask you at the end of this training to potentially look for a team. It might be a team of 1. It might be just you. It might be a team of 178, like at DSHS. But we'll get to that in a little later. But we'll ask for you to look for potential local coordinators. And then in July, we'll do our Seahawks ticket auction, which again is just a fundraiser that tries to help offset those admin costs. So it is not necessarily the most equitable program. We recognize that because it is the highest donor gets those tickets. One of it is because of the gambling commission and the raffling rules. And then 2, we're trying to keep our admin costs low. And so we're kind of, that one is a fundraiser and it's not necessarily we've received the feedback and we've looked into other ways, but it's just kind of where we're at for that particular program, which is why we do a lot of other programs that are more cost effective. In August, we'll do local coordinator training. So again, anyone that's serving in the local coordinator role or campaign leaders that weren't able to attend can join that training. And really, August is that time that you and your individual agency should be discussing those goals, themes, fundraiser ideas, monthly meeting dates, kind of setting the groundwork of what the active campaign will look like for you. September, we'll do our leadership breakfast, which will be September 12th. Am I right? Am I wrong? So, yep, September 12th in the morning. And then we'll do we'll start getting ready for our first week to give campaign. So again, if this is your first week to give campaign, we promote people donating $5 or increasing by $5 and they get or more, and they get a $5 Starbucks gift card electronically delivered to them with the email on file. In October, we'll do that first week to give, and then we'll promote the Seahawks tickets again. November, we're doing promotion for Giving Tuesday, and then we'll do that charity sweepstakes event that we've been doing for the last 2 years. It's been pretty successful of increasing our recurring donations because we know that is the most bang for your buck when it comes to, if you get someone who's doing a recurring donation, the following year, your participation baseline moves up. Your dollars raised moves up, right? Even if it's just a few people that start doing $2 contributions, it still helps when it comes to goal setting, when it comes to having that participation increase for your agency. And then December, we have a fundraising deadline of December 6th. That just means if you want your charity and your fundraiser to count for the 2024 year, you have to get us all our paperwork by December 6th. And that's because in order to get the money out by the end of January, we have to have all of the fundraisers attached to a payroll in December. So it attaches to the last payroll in December, and then we reconcile and get it out. If you don't get it in by that time, what happens is it ends up counting for the next year, which can be a little frustrating maybe for you if you're really, really hoping, oh my gosh, but I don't want to discourage you from doing something in December later. Just know that it'll likely end up counting for 2025 because by the time it gets reconciled and taken care of and entered correctly, it'll likely be January. And then something that's always important, but often overlooked is just keeping notes when people on your team do something that's above and beyond, whether that be an executive sponsor or a local coordinator or yourself, a team fundraising event. And we really want to celebrate what you all are doing because we know with just the four of us, there's no way that we're going to get to every single event that you all do. And so we want to hear about it. And so we have statewide awards that allow you to nominate individuals in your organization or other organizations that kind of have gone above and beyond what you think is kind of the bar. And we typically send that out at the end of the campaign, so in December, knowing that you're wrapping everything up for the year. So we're going to take a 5-minute break.
5-minute, yeah, 5-minute break.
So 5-minute.
2:19.
Yeah, so we'll start back up at 2:19. So we'll take a 5-minute break. If you have any questions after my long rambling session, you can drop it into the chat. But we will be back in 5 minutes. Thanks, everybody. All right, so we will get back to going. Just a pulse. Can I get like a reaction button from a few of you so I know that someone's here and I'm not just talking into the void? There we go. Thumbs up, some clapping. Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. So I promise I'm the extrovert, so I'm doing the semi-boring slides that are just informational, but then my introverted team is going to take over here soon. So I will get through this next section and then I'll be quiet for a little bit. So appreciate your patience. So next we're going to talk about our volunteers. Just again, for framing, getting everyone on the same page. If this is a review, I really appreciate you sticking it out. We're just trying to make sure that everyone kind of has a base understanding. So types of volunteers, we have three categories. The first being executive sponsor. Often they're chosen by your agency director and they help you gain support from executive management. This is a really helpful role because we know that people do look for those signaling cues from management of what they value, what they find important, and what they don't. And so having an executive sponsor can be really helpful because it gives you permission to make this a priority. And so oftentimes it's that figurehead from the top that's making a statement, sometimes sending an email on your behalf, kicking off a campaign event for you, but they can be a really pivotal role. Campaign leaders, hey, that's you. You act typically as the agency-wide CFD lead by recruiting, logging fundraisers, and providing and supporting our local coordinators. Some agencies have one campaign leader, some have several. Just really depends on the size of the institution and what works for you all. And then local coordinators, um, oftentimes these are individuals that are kind of representative for a specific physical location or a specific division. So depending on your agency, you might set it up a little bit differently. The way that the Secretary of State sets it up is we have one executive sponsor. Right now we have one campaign leader, and then we have 7 local coordinators for the 7 divisions that we have. And they just disseminate information to their particular divisions. And we have about an FTE of 300. So it's different for every agency and how it works out, but that's what we're currently doing. So again, some more examples. Our executive sponsors, like I said, might be sending that email of support. They could be assisting in volunteering recruiting efforts. So they could be the ones that give the suggestion of, hey, directors, we should have a representative so we can actually get the information out correctly. Or we should dedicate some resources from IT to create an intranet or a SharePoint site or et cetera that works for our agency. They might act as the liaison with management. So again, really sharing those priorities of you as the campaign leader to your upper level management so they can all be aware of what's coming down the pipeline. And they're communicating with frontline supervisors. For you, I said most of these. One of the other things outside of what I talked about was ordering CFD supplies. So that might be ordering for your agency if you have a budget, or we have some things for you at the statewide level. It's really challenging for us to have enough for something for every single state employee since there are over 120,000 state employees. And that budget is just non-existent. So we have some baseline swag for individuals that they can pass out, and then some material, digital material that will be helpful for you to run and administer your campaign. Building a theme. So again, we have a theme which you may have been able to figure out by all of the visual cues. I think we're going over it in more detail later, so I won't spoil it yet. And then but you can also come up with your own theme. We just provide a branded theme for you each year. So again, we did 2 and 22. We did B in 23, right? We really like rhyming alliteration sometimes to kind of help just with something that's simple and easy to digest for individuals. And then if you do have local coordinators, you'll be responsible for communicating to them. If you are the local coordinator and the campaign leader, or if you have multiple local coordinators, oftentimes these individuals are the ones doing the events. They're building local teams, they're promoting charitable giving, and they're reporting results up to you to make sure that fundraisers are logged. So some specific things for you as a campaign leader is recruiting your volunteers for your agency, promoting the CFD overall. I think COVID in a lot of ways, fundamentally shifted how we operate as state employees. Every agency has returned to work differently. Some are completely virtual, some are hybrid, some are in person, but have just shifted and downsized. And I think what I've learned is the importance of enhancing the circle and the sphere of influence that you have. I think we may have not noticed how important it was when we were all in person, about those times where you'd come through the cube farm and you'd knock on a new person's cube and you'd say like, "Hey, I'm Robert. I'm the campaign leader. I know it was really overwhelming during your first week of work here. It's been a few months. Can I talk to you about the CFD? We're doing this chili cook-off in a couple of weeks. It's a way to give back. It's a way to feel like you're part of something bigger, et cetera, et cetera." That moment is harder to come by these days, even if you're in person, because we've now had this really results driven, we constantly have to be firing off, doing more with less kind of mentality. And so carving those moments out have been harder in the last couple of years, but I think it's extremely important because the reality is most of us are facing email fatigue. And so it's really easy to send a agency-wide email and for the click rate to be less than 20%. And unfortunately, then you're missing out those opportunities to engage individuals that you might have been able to have the opportunity if you saw in person. Some of that might be based on how you set an agency-wide goal. So again, is it going to be money? Is it going to be participation? Is it going to be maintaining? Because we know this is going to be a challenging year. And so what we want to do is celebrate the people that are donating and try to make sure that we maintain that really great agency-wide goal of 15% participation, 30% participation, $30,000, $2,000, right? It might be different for your agency, but oftentimes we see people do better when they set some sort of goal to work towards. When they just say, "Oh, I'll share the information." Sometimes they get good results, but oftentimes without a lack of direction and purpose, it can be really challenging to make advancements and to make those incremental improvements. The fourth bullet is always the hardest one, is making the ask. It's really uncomfortable. I'm bad at it sometimes because I know I'm dealing with my own stuff. But the reality is people can make their own choices. And so if you put the ask out there and they politely decline joining your activity or donating, that's okay. And we're going to respect that. But we need to make the ask, because if we don't make the ask, they're not going to come reach out for us, because there's a lot of information working for the state, a lot of programs. And so we need to make our voices heard, and that requires making that ask. And then logging the fundraisers. Again, system's old. Fundraisers you'd think would be automatically logged, but when you do a fundraiser, you need to tell us where the money goes, which charities it goes to, because if we just get a lump of money, we don't know what to do with it, and then we have to track you down. So logging your fundraisers makes our life easier, makes Renee's life easier, and I like when Renee's life is easier. Recruiting your team. I think, it's really just the variety is the spice of life, right? And the idea of making sure that we have, those outgoing individuals that really want to get out there, right? Who's the extrovert of your group? It's me. And but you need someone to be able and be willing to talk. Um, you need someone who's detail oriented, who's going to ask those questions, who's going to slow you down a little bit to make sure that the product that you're putting out there is quality product, that there's not a silly a grammar mistake or a spelling mistake on your poster. You need those people, and vice versa. You need that creative person that's willing to make the poster, come up with the fun idea, uh, and having that passionate, that's usually on everyone, right? They're here for the CFD because they believe in the mission of the CFD, or they're motivated by a charity that really inspires them. And of course, reliability is always nice. And so finding a balance is really important, and what works for you and what works for your agency is going to look different based on how big your agency is, how your agency is split over the state, and what your goals are. So again, speaking of where your agency is, thinking about if you are an agency that's split over multiple divisions or multiple regions, or however you identify in your particular agency, it's important to think about, the event that happens in Spokane might be completely separate from what happens in Clark County, but they're both relevant, and both parties deserve activities that promote the charities in their communities, and the charities that connect them. And so just trying to think strategically about, do we have representation from multiple parts of the state if we're an agency that spans multiple parts of the state? Can we get representation from these different areas? So because often if they can speak on behalf of that area, like, oh, like we'd really love an event that looks like this, right? Maybe you can increase participation or engagement in that because you're actually hearing from those individuals who work over there rather than making assumptions. So I talked earlier, just to give you a reference point of, every agency is different because we serve commissions that are 8 people or 3 people, all the way up to the University of Washington, which I think last year you were like 32,000 employees or something along those lines. And so the gambit is very wide. And so the way that your agency is going to work looks differently. And here's just a few examples. So you'd look at a large agency like DSHS with 17,500 employees. They have 160 or 176 volunteers. Now there's some campaign leaders that are helping with each division, and then there's going to be individuals that report to each of those campaign leaders that are in field offices. Department of Revenue with 1,400, with 30 volunteers. And then a smaller agency, which we usually view as anything under 100. So the Washington State Office of Minority and Women's Business Enterprises with 43, they have 5 volunteers. That works for them. Again, it's really up to your agency to decide how big your volunteer group is, but this is just a few examples of why it's kind of sometimes challenging for us to give you a one-size-fits-all answer, because we're trying to create content that works for tiny commissions all the way to, yeah, 52,000 people. Jolyn, thank you for the updated number. I know not everyone can give based on their work type, but yeah, some wide varieties for sizing. Is this still me promoting the campaign? Is this you?
No, I'm gonna take it over. Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody. I'm still here. I'm just gonna drink some water after talking for an hour. Appreciate you.
Okay, thanks, boss. All right, so talking about promoting the campaign. Now, this section, I just really wanted to provide you folks with some examples and resources to really get the CFD word out there. I know that when we say, hey, advertise the CFD, you might be like, okay, how should I do that? Like Robert mentioned, I think that we're in a time frame where we have to really pause and re-up on letting people know what the CFD is, who we are, what we do. And so that's why we wanted to kind of go into in depth this time around to really showcase what we have and the resources for you folks. He had mentioned the theme or goal for a campaign, how that can be important for when you're wanting to just get people excited for the next campaign year. Our goal our theme this year is explore 40 years and 40 stories. I think that in the past we've kind of had action themes. So one year we had give 2 and 22, we made it very simple. Just give at least $2 a month. And that can still make a difference. Last year was 23 and B. So be better, be a volunteer, be a anything. But this year we kind of wanted to step back and really celebrate everything that we have done over the past 40 years, since it is our 40th anniversary, and really get stories from our volunteers, our donors, our charities, everyone who has been impacted and has impacted the CFD. We kind of want to hear from them and really showcase those stories. I think it's important for us to, when we get to the heart of what the CFD is, which is our people and the people that we inspire, that can also inspire giving. I also manage our social media, and I've noticed that the most engaged with posts are the ones with fellow peers and charities and actual faces and pictures of people and stories that we've done are stories from why one certain donor gives to a charity. And so we wanted to elevate that and make it a whole theme. So we're really excited to get that going for the big state CFD. So you can use that in your upcoming campaign, or you can create your own mini campaign. I know last year a lot of people had fun with the bee theme, and so they kept that going. And it was kind of cool to go over to different agencies' events and see the little bee everywhere. So you can really take that and run with it, or kind of create your own little mini theme within your own agency. It's really up to you how you want to work with it. Let's see. Something you can also do to promote the campaign is encourage local campaigns. Look around your agencies, your offices, and see like what charities are around you. What charities make sense for your agency to really be passionate about? For example, if you're part of Parks and Rec and you find some good charities that really take care of the environment, have something to do with what your employees are actually working with every day. I think that that really makes a difference, and that really gets that engagement from donors even more so. For example, we do a Well-Fed, Well-Read event every April, and that has it, we're impacting with Thurston County Food Bank as well as South Sound Reading Foundation. And we have a food and goods drive, and that is always super successful. People get really excited. We have a little challenge amongst agencies, and it's just really cool to see. I know you're talking about these marketing materials and supplies for you folks, but later on in the presentation, I'll kind of go through our online page and where you can find the resources that we're talking about. Since COVID, everything has really transitioned to virtual. So I have the order supplies that you can order here, contribution forms online, PDF posters, as well as printed posters. So if you want physical copies of these things, you can just contact us. They're charged to the agency. There's not a charge, I don't believe, right, Erin? I don't think you charge when you send them.
No charge. We have limited supplies, so even if you're an agency of 2,000, you're gonna probably only get a handful of like swag items, because we only budget about $7,000 for like marketing material for all agencies, which is a pretty shoestring budget when you think about how many people we're serving. So it's pretty limited. Yeah.
Got lots of pens though, so if you want some pens, we've got plenty. Like Robert talked about, there are some CFD events that are going on throughout the year to the end of the year. If you can't do your own events, just push out what we have. I think that that's more than enough. There's a big event coming up in July, our pickleball tournament and 40th anniversary celebration. You will probably be getting an email within this next week. So even starting there and promoting that tournament and that event is really great to get participation from your agency. We have local coordinator training in August, Rainier's games, the kickoff breakfast, all these things Robert has already talked about, but get these on your calendar and just be prepared, you know, around these time frames to just maybe push out an email or two. And I will send or show you some templates that I have for these events that you can just copy and paste and email. And yes, we will provide these slides to you as well. And I can show you where that will be as well. And then engagement opportunities. These are just some examples that you can use. You can invite the CFD team to an all-staff meeting, or maybe just a weekly meeting that you have in your office. Robert and I have gone to a couple of those, and we always have a lot of fun just meeting with you folks. Or you could speak at your own agency celebration. When we visited, I think it was LCB, we went to give them an award and kind of had a little spot at that agency celebration to talk about the CFD. You know, you have everyone there already. You might as well kind of slide a little bit of CFD propaganda in there while you're at it. You can include some CFD info in your interagency communications, as well as just have, like we said before, executive sponsorship. Our sponsors really support your campaign. For example, with our own agency, Secretary of State, when we have our executive management involved and they're replying and they're having fun with the challenges that we're doing in our fundraisers, we can really see a difference in the donor rate and the engagement that everyone has in the agency. So when you get that upper level management excited, everyone else gets excited as well. And kind of talking about like the stories and engaging through stories, we have our own social media that you can follow. I'll show you that on our website. You can add donor and volunteer stories in weekly newsletters or emails. I have a little spot where Erin kind of talked herself. You can put something fun like that in an email if you want. Or maybe you can make your own social media, you know, just have fun with it, really highlight the employees that are active in the community. Maybe you do a little poll of, hey, what charities do you volunteer for every month or so, and maybe get some feedback on your peers, and you never know what they are involved in and the really cool things that all these people are doing on their free time, you know, getting to know each other and building that fun engagement with each other. And now I keep talking about all this online stuff, so I will take you on a little tour of the website and where you can find all of these resources. Exit out of that. Okay, can everyone see our main webpage? Thumbs up somewhere. Yes, Erin. Okay, awesome. So where our main webpage is give.wa.gov. When you come to the page, you'll have this kind of rotating carousel with our main campaign. We'll have a few events going on. Right now, we have the CFD Tacoma Rainiers event going. Sometimes you'll have an agency with a huge statewide event and they want us to promote it up here. This is kind of where you'll find that. We mentioned having like a campaign report, annual, or the charity guides. That is always going to live up here. Hi, Tammy.
Hello.
We'll get you folks in right after this presentation. So, okay, thank you. And then we talked about ways to give earlier with the QR code. So this is where you're going to find tracking food and goods. This is how you'll track your volunteers, or you can give monetarily. So if you click on here to food and goods, it'll take you to this form where you can record all of that good stuff. Volunteer tracker will take you to the volunteer page, and then giving monetarily will just send you to where you can search for your charities. But the most important thing for all of you volunteers is our little volunteers tab up here. So when you go to volunteers and you scroll all the way down, we have our training materials. And so our training materials will have everything for campaign leaders that we just talked about today. So I will update the presentations here. as well as there's a campaign leader handbook that lives on the page always. And that just kind of looks like this. And it basically is a whole summary of everything that we're talking about today. So if you're like, I totally forgot what the ethics are on this, it lives here in the handbook. But something new that we've tried to implement this year are templates. This is just to make it easier for you folks. If you're busy in October, you have nothing else, you can't do anything, you can't make an event, you can come over here and just click on a template. And this is also working in Canva. So if you folks have not used Canva before, it is free. They have like a free baseline one for all users. And everything I'm doing right now is what you can do even though you don't have an account. So you will find, say we have first week to give going on, and you're like, I want a graphic. So if you come here, you can take this graphic, maybe put your agency logo here, take this, download it, and you can have it. So anything that I create, and this is kind of a working, living document. So throughout the campaign, I will be updating it with as each event comes forward. Like we have the Rainiers game right now, so then you could have taken this and then post this on your social media. And if you have any questions about how Canva is or anything right now, I can answer that for you. But that's one template for social media. I have a template for flyers. So similarly, but in a different sizing. We've got first week to give. Maybe you just want to promote the CFD around your office. Maybe post a poster of the Rainiers tournament, what's going on. We have a charity sweepstakes. You can use this. We have an upcoming pickleball tournament that we're still working on. So yeah, you can use these templates. Feel free to kind of play around with that. But we just kind of wanted to give you a baseline start off, as well as we have these email templates. It's a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna make it smaller if we can. Okay, but in the email templates, you can just copy and paste. So say you want to recruit, you can just copy and paste this messaging we prepared for you folks. If you're getting ready for the campaign, you can use this. If you want to correspond with your volunteers, you can use these baseline like messages. And this is also a living document. So say you come up with, hey Layla, I don't know how to really word this event out and you don't have it on this sheet, you can let me know and I can like update it as we go through the campaign. Can we put someone else's picture and story on that communication in place of Robert? Yes, you can. So like I said, since they are templates, you can in Canva take your own photo, put Joe Schmo in there instead and have his story instead of Robert's. These are really for you to play around with and just trying to give you a baseline resource if you need it and you're in a time crunch and you maybe don't have like a graphic designer to help you out. I will try my best as the resident graphic person. So that's something new, and I'm still open to suggestions. And if you find like, I'm having really a hard time copying pasting here, this is the first time that we're running it. So I really am here to like listen to you folks and have you kind of be my test people to see how this is going to work for the upcoming campaign. But yeah, so if there are any questions about that, you can always message me and we can work on making the most user-friendly templates for you folks so that the campaign can go as smoothly as possible. Let's see. And then lastly, again, homepage, volunteers, scroll down, training materials. I know our website has a bunch of information all over the place. If you ever need help finding something, I can let you know. But I know I had mentioned ordering supplies. So lastly, if you go under giving campaign materials, this is where you can find your contribution forms to print out, as well as order supplies. It will take you to a page where you can kind of do fill it out and order maybe like 20 posters or whatever fun swag. Then also this is where you can find your posters for 2024 to print out and have in your offices. Let me see. Are there any questions about what's on this web page? No. And lastly, I just a little plug for my social media. Our social media sites are all up here in the top right corner. Please follow us. We post some fun things, some fun pictures, and we also do like, hey, there's this event, and it's kind of like a fun reminder of what's going on, as well as our YouTube channel. So if you're interested, we make some fun YouTube videos. We do a theme. This year we did a little theme teaser. You can watch that all on our page. Like and subscribe. But all right. I think that is all if there are no other questions. Okay, so we're just going to jump right into our charity speakers since they have graced us with their presence. All right. And Tammy, you folks don't have slides or anything like that, right?
I do have a PowerPoint, but it's not necessary. We don't need to show it.
Okay. Do you have it ready? You can probably take. Okay. Do you know how to take? Let me see. Let me stop sharing. Are you able to share?
I think I can. Hang on just a sec.
Perfect. Right. Okay. Yes, we can see that.
All right. Awesome.
So,
well, thank you for welcoming us here and getting a chance to share with you all. My name is Shalika Trevino. I'm the CEO for Boys and Girls Clubs of Thurston County, and we have a couple of staff with us and then one of our youth, and I'll get a chance to introduce him in just a few minutes. We have Tammy Collins, our Director of Resource Development, and then Latasha Pinkney, our branch director for our RMAC branch. So I have worked for Boys and Girls Clubs of Thurston County since 2005, and multiple positions, front desk, program staff, chief operating officer, just kind of all over the board. And last July, the board of directors named me CEO, and I've spent a long time with the clubs, and what I can say is the reason that I've been here as long as I have is because I know that we're making a tremendous difference for the youth, the teens, and the families that we serve. We have a method to our madness, if you will. We call that our formula for impact. And so we're really trying to identify young people who need us most, who can benefit from additional mentoring in their lives. The type of need that youth are facing is diverse. It could be socioeconomic. It could be that they have special needs. It could be that they're without housing. There's just so many elements to that piece. But making sure that we're connected to school districts and community partners is a huge part of us. Making sure that the kids who need us most and their families know how to reach club programs. We have elements that make up our positive youth development strategy in the clubs. That includes recognition, programming, very specific types of programming. We definitely want the kids who are part of the club to attend regularly. And we know that those things lead to what we call our priority outcomes, academic success, good character, and we've rephrased that to leadership, and then healthy lifestyles. Number one piece of access that we really focus on is affordability for families. In a world where everything's so expensive, we want to make sure that the fees that we charge are low barrier, and the scholarships that we offer are accessible and not burdensome to the families who need them. In 2023, we scholarshiped over $1 million in club fee waivers, and that's important because it means that the kids who needed access were able to get that access, and their parents were able to afford it And that's made possible because of our funding model. We are made up of mostly donations. Only about 17% of our funding comes from club fees. This is kind of a picture of last year and how many kids we served. We do have 8 branch locations. 4 of them are in schools. 4 of them are kind of what we refer to as standalone locations. They're all in partnership with either a school district or a city municipality. So we had just about 1,400 club members, and then we do partner programmatically with some sports programming. And so we were able to serve another 100 plus youth through that for a total of over 1,500 youth over 2023 who were served. You'll notice that more than half of the youth that we serve qualify for free and reduced lunch at school. More than 63% of the youth that we serve qualify for scholarships, and we base that on HUD income guidelines, which are slightly elevated in comparison to the federal lunch program, which just means that more youth had access to scholarship programming than the 51% who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Another piece to our program is programs. We really want to focus on programs that we know are enriching. So we have targeted programs that we offer in each of our branches, really that are wrapped in relationships. Everything that we do at Boys and Girls Clubs is about relationships, from the time that families sign up for services, to the point where kids are attending, and then ultimately that partnership that we have with community-based organizations and school districts. We run a Power Hour program, which is academic in nature. It's supportive of homework help, but also when we've identified that a particular kiddo is struggling maybe with math, or perhaps they're struggling with reading, we can hone in on those specific subjects and match them with tutors, no charge additionally for those services, and really try to get them to grade level by the end of the school year. We also have a mental health support program called Kayla's Kids. And that program is really intended to make sure that kids who have additional needs behaviorally and socially are successful in the club environment. Many times we will serve kids who have not found success in other academic activities, or even in after-school programming. And so our staff who run this program come alongside kiddos, identify the areas where they need to kind of work on skill building, and then, work to get them to a place where they in fact kind of have developed those skills. Housing insecurity, that might be like, well, how do you fit into that puzzle? The way that we fit here is kids that are experiencing homelessness, or who are unhoused, or in temporary housing, qualify to attend the Boys and Girls Club at no additional charge. So the membership fee that we charge typically is waived. Any activity fee that we charge is waived entirely, and they have access to club every day that we're opened over the course of an entire annual year. We partner heavily with North Thurston Public Schools on this. They come back to club and pick kiddos up and then take them to their temporary place of residence. And then we're working on expanding that piece of the program in other school districts as well. The teen centers, we have a teen center at 7 of our 8 branches, is really devoted to 6th through 12th graders. Some of our clubs, it's predominantly middle schoolers, but for example, our RMAC branch, where our Youth of the Year attends, that's a very heavy high school demographic. And so making sure that it's a combination of programming is really important. Having food for teenagers is really important. So snacks and cuisine days and opportunities for them to fellowship around food, but also making sure they have time for social recreation. So at the RMAC location, we have 2 full-size basketball courts, and they're able to participate in that activity. We partner with another organization that runs free skill building for basketball. And so that's a huge draw for high schoolers. And then adding in their academic enrichment and leadership opportunities is a huge piece to that puzzle of serving teens. So next up, I wanted to just show you guys very briefly, and then I'll introduce Keone. Just our breakdown of revenue and then expenses. Like I mentioned earlier, only 17% of our income or revenue is represented by the fees that we charge families. The remaining amount is brought in through special events, donations. You all have been very supportive in the past, and that goes straight into us helping those families who need financial fee waivers. And then, of course, we apply for grants annually. Most of our budget, our expense budget, is made up of professional staffing, similar to most businesses or organizations. That's where we have the heaviest budget line. Through in-kind partnerships, we're able to keep our other operational expenses pretty low. And so we're extremely grateful for opportunities where we can have snack donated, or perhaps we have a really great arrangement for our lease on the building that we're using. Those are ways that we can make sure that most of our resources are pointed toward mentoring of the kids that we serve. So that's all that I have in the way of information for you all, because the best part of hearing about Boys and Girls Club is hearing from one of our alumni. And our current member, Keone Borja, is here to speak with you all. I'm going to escape out of this and stop sharing. Keone is our 2024 Youth of the Year for Boys and Girls Clubs of Thurston County. He represented us at the state competition in Seattle a few months back, but he really represents us every day when he goes to school and attends the club, and is a tremendous leader. And I am so excited for you guys to hear from him. So I think they're connected. Latasha, are you there?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I am here. Hey, Shelka. Can you see us?
I cannot see you. No, I cannot.
It says our camera is on, but, and I have a glow at the top of the laptop.
I see a very dark screen.
Latasha, this is Tammy. Is there a little sliding window that goes across the lens of your camera?
No, I have on the older models. No, but the light is on. Keone's.
I think we can just hear from Keone if we can't get the camera to work.
Okay. But you can hear just fine? No light?
Yes, your audio is coming through just fine.
Okay. Keone would like to share his experience recently. He co-emceed at a breakfast fund, our annual breakfast fundraiser, and he would like to review what he spoke of then, and then give you a little update afterwards as how his week has been in the month of June. Go ahead. You could just start off with. Oh. Go ahead, you can just read it.
You want me to read this whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, picture this. You're 3,500 feet above the ground, the wind rushing through your hair from the cracked window, feeling completely in sync with the aircraft. You hear the radio calls from Olympia Tower, sky 6268 Delta. That's me, Keone Borja. Being in the air is where I truly feel most liberated. Amidst the strict rules and regulations of everyday life, it feels as if there's none when I'm flying high. I'm a junior student at North Thurston High School, enrolled in the Running Start program and the South Puget Sound Community College. Also a student pilot at Safety and Motion Flight School. My ultimate goal is to become an Air Force aviator, but my journey hasn't always been so clear-cut. Let me start with sharing my club experience. Over the years, as I've attended club, I've found a sense of peace, diversity, and direction among the many friends I've made there. The club isn't just about one person, it's about all of us coming together. When I first joined during COVID-19 pandemic, I never imagined I'd be so involved. Initially, I used club as a place to practice basketball and casually come and go. However, meeting Miss Latasha changed my perspective. The club has become more than just a place of play on the basketball court. It became a place where I could explore new interests, engage in conversations, play instruments, participate in activities, and go on field trips. My mentor, Miss Natasha's unwavering support has pushed me to realize my potential and step out of my comfort zone. While the Youth of the Year wasn't initially on my radar, I've now embraced the opportunity to become the best version of myself, shedding old habits of narrow-mindedness and self-reflection while opening to others in a more vulnerable and authentic way. The connections I've made through the Youth of the Year program have been invaluable. I've connected with friends from all corners of Washington, each with roots in both familiar and unfamiliar places. As a military child, hearing the backstories of others have made me feel welcomed and understood. During the Youth of the Year process, I no longer saw my fellow candidates as competition. Instead, they became a part of my story. We've bonded, cheered for each other, and supported one another. A special shout out to Jordan, the winner of the Youth of the Year, JBLM, who has been a great source of support since we first met. I know that every young person in the clubs has a mentor like Miss Latasha, who believes in them, sees their potential, and pushes them to excel. Miss Latasha has helped me by constantly checking in, monitoring my grades, inviting me to new opportunities, and believing in me even when I struggle to believe in myself. The club has gave me the chance to share my perspective while also sharing with us the perspective of others. Every pilot needs supporting navigation. The club has been that for me.
Thank you, Keone. Appreciate that. Hopefully you guys can see the photo that's up of him.
Oh my gosh. Why is that up there? Oh no.
Keone, I was lucky to visit with him not just maybe an hour ago, and he's given me a lot of updates, and I would love for him to share with you all. I would love for you to feel how excited I am for him. He recently went on a trip. I won't give away too much. Go ahead, Keone.
I have to explain it all?
Yes, just
Okay.
quickly, briefly, it's fine.
So this past week, from the 1st to the 6th, I've attended the Naval Academy Summer Seminar Program. It's a program that teaches us what it's like to be a part of the Naval Academy and what our future looks like as future cadets attending there. It gives us a sense of like camaraderie and the rigorous training and discipline of what it is to be a part of the Navy, basically.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was probably the sea trials. Even though they made us work out for 6 hours straight, it was definitely enjoyable.
So sea trials, you're in water, correct?
Yes, sea trials is in the water.
What was your least favorite experience that you actually gained from?
My least favorite experience?
Mm-hmm. Waking up at 4 a.m.?
Probably, yeah, waking up at 4 a.m. But it does teach discipline in a way.
That's what I wanted to share with you all.
Awesome. All right, you guys, thank you. We appreciate all of you taking time to hear about Boys and Girls Clubs of Thurston County, but also for your longstanding support. CFD has definitely been a force in the community for so many nonprofits, and we feel really blessed to be part of that group that you all have selected to support. So thank you so much. Enjoy your training.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And for everyone, this is just one opportunity, one charity of the thousands that you all support. But I think it goes back to the conversation that we were talking about earlier, where it's telling that personal story and hearing that connection from someone is really inspiring. It's more inspiring than maybe reading an email or quickly deleting that email that you got when you're getting hundreds of emails a day. And so we really appreciate the Boys and Girls Club of Thurston County joining us today. If you ever need contacts, we can get you connected with them if you'd like to bring them to your agency, or if you're trying to connect with any other agencies. So thank you all for being here, Boys and Girls Club, but I'll kick it back over to Layla to continue our training. And for the individuals, Boys and Girls Club, you don't have to stick around for the rest of training. Don't worry. There's no quiz at the end. We appreciate you joining us.
Okay,
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let me get the training back up and running. All right, and now I'm going to hand it off to Erin to talk to you folks about fundraising practices, very just high level things, but take it away, Erin.
Okay, so I'm going to cruise through these slides. Fundraisers, they are super fun. They're very engaging. They get a lot of kudos and participation from folks that might not know how to initially get involved with the CFD, but it is not something that is required. You do not have to host any fundraisers. We know that it tends to be a bigger lift with planning and executing. So I'm just going to briefly go over some hints and tips and best practices. So when planning your fundraiser, you'll want to start off with anticipating what your budget is. You don't want to spend more money than you anticipate on raising. Some examples of this would be how Ecology, they host a Krispy Kreme fundraiser, and Department of Enterprise Services, they had recently hosted a cutest pet contest and featured these adorable pets on a calendar that was then sold virtually and I think also printed. So it's really important to think about your budget when you have these tangible goods, especially if you anticipate on requesting a reimbursement. And I will go a little bit more in more detail further down the line. Another thing you'll want to think about is selecting an active charity to support for these particular events that you are hosting. We are unable to disperse donor dollars to CFD charity members that are not a part of the CFD, or if they are not an active charity with the CFD. Robert had mentioned there's only two criteria, and that is to be a registered 501c3 and then also to maintain an active status as a charitable organization with the Secretary of State's office. The easiest and fastest way you can know whether or not a charity that you are wanting to do an event for is active is to utilize our charity search guide. We know it's cumbersome, it's clunky. If you type in the organization and they don't immediately pop up, we can do a little background research and let you know what type of status they're in. That's the best way to find out if they are currently active. And then when hosting an event, we recommend no more than 3 organizations, and that really helps you in the long run because ultimately you're going to need to enter this information under your campaign leader accounts, and I will show you where that will happen. You'll want to communicate to your volunteer team that all fundraisers run through you. So these are your local coordinators that are at your various divisions, departments in the area and across the state. And that's just so that you can know what's happening and then provide any guidance to them. We don't want folks going rogue with particular events. And it's just to help you know what's happening and steer clear of anything like gambling or anything that is a no-no. And then you'll want to find out who in your agency's fiscal department will manage your fundraisers. This gives them a heads up that they may be receiving some monies and that you're going to need them to transfer it to our office. So find out who that person is. And then at the end of your event, download all fundraiser forms to submit once your fundraiser is complete. These are the forms that help us know how the money is coming to our office and also which charities and how much is it should be distributed to each of these organizations. Next slide. So some important tips. If you are hosting an event in which you are having folks fill out contribution forms to the CFD, again, Robert mentioned it's a great way to raise participation. It's really one of the only ways to raise participation for your agency. Please do not keep these physical forms until the end of the campaign. Please collect them and send the originals to our office as soon as your event has concluded. There's no need for you to keep copies. just send them to our office. And this is to help omit any confusion on participants that were part of your fundraiser. Because say you hosted a delicious chili feed in October, but then you did not send these forms to our office till December, we cannot input them into the payroll deduction until we receive them. Sometimes that may take a few days until they get to the system. So we just want to make sure that they're not confused. Like, I did this event in October. Why is my money getting pulled out in December? Another important tip is consider pay dates when planning a fundraiser. The 10th tends to be better than the 25th. The 25th is when people are anticipating on those big dollar things that they need to pay for on like the 1st. So that'd be mortgages, car payments. So the 10th tends to be where folks may have a little bit more fun money / fund. The CFD must have a record of your agency fundraisers. And that's so you have your volunteers keeping you in the loop, and then we want you to keep us in the loop. So we also know what's happening. We anticipate certain things that are coming in down the pipeline. And then again, consider the general fund 0316854 to help offset administrative fees. We also can collect and be a part of your fundraisers. And if you anticipate reimbursement, always notify us before the start of any of those types of events. And again, that just helps offset admin fees. The way that we try and really like to do them is any money that you anticipate on receiving as a reimbursement, we would designate that towards the CFD, and then anything that's raised above would then get distributed to any of your charities that you are supporting. Next slide. Tips for solicitation. CFD volunteers are allowed to solicit for in-kind donations. Please check with your agency leadership and human resources prior to solicit, because some regulatory agencies may not be allowed to do this. When going out in the community, identify yourself as a CFD volunteer and not an employee. We don't want to go out there and have people think, well, I already support the state through my taxes. Why are you now trying to ask for these freebies? So again, CFD, we are a nonprofit. We can have donations collected on behalf of the CFD for any event that you are hosting. And then obtain permission to solicit for businesses during work hours. Again, each agency has their own levels in which they will allow you to participate. So always check before doing any of this. And if you're unable to solicit, check with us. We might be able to help you. Next slide. Are there any questions? Trying to go through these quickly, because again, not everyone has to do a fundraiser. So during your fundraiser, cash handling, the one point I wanted to bring up with this particular slide is that, yes, some people want to participate and donate via cash. Does it count towards participation? As Robert said earlier, no. When collecting cash from these donors, we do not need individual contribution forms for each of the donors that are donating cash. Instead, you'll use your event form to tell us the total that you had collected, and then divvy up how much should be going to each charity. Again, protect all your donations at your event. 2, volunteers must count and record donations before submitting them to your fiscal department. This just protects you to make sure, is this how much money I collected? Yes, it is. It's covering all those bases. Next slide. After your fundraiser, you will get the transfer number and dollar amount from your fiscal department. This is if you had utilized them. Some folks we know do not have access to their fiscal departments because they are in a different part of the state, or they just aren't able to utilize that resource. So then the other way that you can submit cash to our office is by getting a money order or a cashier's check. We strongly advise against depositing any donor dollars, cash that has been collected, into personal accounts. Again, this is just to protect you. And then utilize the information on the fundraiser transfer form to enter your fundraiser online. I will show you briefly where that is and how to do that. Save a copy of all your fundraiser documents. This is, we know that we can't have you as our campaign leaders forever and forever, even though we would love it. So saving your fundraiser documents helps build that legacy and history for any future campaign leaders that come down the line. It could have information on past events that you've had and whether or not something was successful, or things that they could do differently to make it even more successful. So keep copies of your documents, send the originals to our office, and then at the end, share the results, celebrate all the work that you put in, and let the agency know all the good that they have done and the charities that they have supported. Next. So reimbursement. The way in which you can get a reimbursement is by completing the A19 form. One very big note is that we, as the combined fund drive, we cannot reimburse individuals within your agency. We are only able to reimburse like Department of Revenue or Department of Ecology, the agencies themselves. So what will need to happen is your agency will reimburse these individuals that had spent money on any event. And then your agency will complete the A19 form, submit it to our office, and then we reimburse the agency. Save a copy of all your reimbursement documents, send your reimbursement documents to your financial office. And then again, your financial office will reimburse your agency, and then the CFD reimburses them. Fundraisers must be submitted by December 6th, and this is just to ensure that the money that was collected gets dispersed for the that calendar year. If fundraisers happen later in the year, they might not get dispersed until the next year, which ultimately that just gives you a great head start for that year as well. So just making note of that. Slide. We have a great campaign leader toolkit. It's a fiscal handbook. It has a lot of awesome information in it. So if you have any questions, that's a great resource and tool for you to use. Next slide. Okay, so I will now do a tutorial to help show you where to log in to your campaign leader accounts. We know that you may only be logging in once a year or so. So it's good to have a little reminder on where to go. So you'll visit our website, give.wa.gov. You will click on volunteers, scroll down. You will then click on campaign leader sign in. If you are a campaign leader and you did not receive a login, please email us at cfd@sos.wa.gov and we will get you situated. Need to make sure that I have my own login credentials here ready.
Where was the campaign leader?
I'll go back. So go to our homepage, give.wa.gov, and then here in tiny print, you'll click on volunteers. Scroll down, this blue button, campaign leader sign in. And see, get my credentials in here. This one. If you forgot your password, you can input your username here. You'll click on forgot password and you'll get an email with a new temporary password that you can use to get into the system. My computer's struggle bus right now. There we go. So the resources that I'm going to focus on right now is number one, you'll want to start off with your agency volunteer report. This gives you a whole list of every volunteer that may currently or not currently be listed as a campaign leader or a local coordinator. Depending on how active your agency has been, the list might be a little outdated. So you'll generate the report and then you'll click on View, Save the Report. So this spreadsheet will give you emails that you can contact, as well as any other information that might be listed. This will be the resource that you'll want to utilize to reach out and say, hey, it's a new campaign year. Are you able to be involved again this year? If not, do you have any suggestions for another individual that might be interested? Or the email may bounce back and then you can just delete them from the system, and I will show you where to do that. You'll click on Manage Volunteer. So clicking on Create New will allow you to input information for any new folks, any local coordinators that are joining you during this campaign. Once you have that information input, you'll click Add New Volunteer. That will save that information. Or if you need to remove someone or edit some contact information, you'll click on Edit Existing. You'll click on this drop down to the right, and then you'll select any individual that you need to make updates for. If you clicked on someone and you actually want to remove them, you'll scroll down and you'll click on Remove Volunteer from Campaign. And the other section that will be of importance to you guys will be, again, if you're hosting a fundraiser, you'll click on Fundraisers. And this is where you'll want to input that fundraiser into the system for any fundraisers in which cash or if you had also utilized our online credit card link, this is where you'll want to put it in the system for us so that we know where the money is going. You'll click on Add Fundraiser. You'll input your fundraiser name. You'll choose your agency. These grayed out areas you cannot edit. You'll select your volunteer, you as your volunteer, or if your local coordinator was the person that had hosted the event, you can put, you can select them as the point person. And then you'll hit one of these radial buttons to say how the money is being transferred. So if you're sending us a cashier's check, you'll select that. If your agency fiscal office is sending us a journal voucher, you'll select that, input the number associated with those transactions here, and then the total transfer amount here. So if you had a fundraiser and you raised $5,000, you'll see this balance that says 5,000. So balance indicates that you need to allocate or charities this money needs to be divided towards. And the way that you do that is you'll input the charity code here and then the particular amount that needs to go to that charity and add charity. So the more charities that you happen to be hosting, because there are sometimes there are folks that have a wide breadth of people and and organizations that they're passionate about. So if you had 20 charities that everyone's donating towards. You have to input each individual charity and each individual amount that this money is going towards. So this is why we suggest leaving it to 3, or just having the CFD as the charity that you're supporting. And when you scroll down, you'll save the fundraiser, and then this lets us know how much money was collected and where that where the funds need to be distributed towards. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Do we have any questions? I was quickly breezing through that. We have a couple minutes. We are here. If you do have questions, we're going to have some great fundraiser Q&As during the heart of our campaign, if that's when your agency is also hosting your campaigns. So yeah, I feel like that was a quick 2 hours.
Is there a monthly report, or is there something that we need to do if we are just collecting over time and not doing is there something specific you're looking for?
Collecting over time, like payroll?
Yeah, or yes, could be payroll, it could be walk-up cash, that kind of thing.
So some agencies will deposit and send money to our office after each event or on a monthly basis. Or some agencies like Labor and Industries, their fiscal office holds on all the money for the whole year and does one transaction at the end of the year. So it really depends on what is going to work for you within your area.
But the most important thing to remember is if it's payroll contribution and they went in and updated it themselves, you don't have to do anything for us. It does it for us with the system. But basically, if you collected a paper form, if you collected cash, check, or credit card, we need your help to figure out where the money goes and who it gets counted toward, or what agency it gets counted towards, etc.
Thank you for repeating that. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
of
and also
course.
and I was gonna say, make sure you know what your agency's cash handling policy is, because I know that varies from agency to agency.
Any other questions? We know that we are at time, right? I think, yeah. So we want to be respectful of your time. We will do some more reach out as the campaign gets closer. So again, we usually do like a Q&A during the campaign. So in October, we'll do a couple like kind of just come with your questions. The biggest takeaway is if you're confused, cfd@sos.wa.gov goes to all 4 of us, and we can really just get it to the right person to help you through. You're doing us a solid. The least we can do is meet you where you're at. So that's what we want you to take away, is that we're here as a resource. We're here to give you toolkits. That's why Layla created the new templates, was just, again, if you're not a tech person, if you're not a graphic person, these are really, if you've never used Canva, it's pretty intuitive if you are comfortable with a computer. And so it all works on the free account, so you don't have to have a paid subscription. She made sure that all the graphics we were using were part of the free package so that you'd be able to utilize them. But we can stick around for anyone who does have any questions. We will send out a survey in the near future, and then with the links just to the page for all the resources that we provided today. But my team will hang out for a few minutes and answer any outstanding questions. But if you don't have any, then you're free to leave. Thank you.
Layla, I love those templates. I think those are awesome.
Thank you. I'm excited for people to use them. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.